All right, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. It's your guy, Pastor Kelvin. I'm going to have to say I apologize about popping on late. Those of you that have followed the podcast broadcast previously, you know something had to be wrong. So I don't know what hoodoo or voodoo happened to all the technology tonight, but we're finally back on. And I know we had some viewers drop off. So if you could, those of you that may be seeing this in the next few moments, do me the huge honor and favor of sharing this broadcast out on your timeline. I know it's going to take just a few moments to get our audience cranked back up again, but guess what? That's all right. That's what we do. So tonight I'm excited as I have a friend and family on again tonight. Someone I don't think she knows how highly I think of her and how proud I am that she's in my network of family and friends, right? Someone to hold me accountable and also someone that's a sister. So I praise God that she's on tonight. We have attorney Ashley Myers Jackson on tonight from Myers Jackson Law Firm to talk about estate planning session 3. So you all bear with me one moment as I bring her into the room with some applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, attorney. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
You know what? I wish I could tell you I'm all right, but inwardly I'm frustrated, but outwardly I'm smiling.
That's all right. That's all right. It's good to have all kinds of emotions. That's
I,
good.
yes, ma'am. We go work through it. Thank you again for taking the time to be on with me tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is our third time together. I'm behind on my plan. I was thinking by now I would have had you at least 10 times on the podcast because I have this whole brainchild of, you know what, we can talk about this, we can have that. Maybe she'll have some friends and family as far as within your network of people that she may want to bring on. And I don't know. So it's almost like square one, but part 3.
That's all right. We can do all of that. And I do have a whole bunch of people that I can wrap into this conversation. So, yeah, at some point, we definitely need to kind of tag team it with other folks. I think that would be good.
I think that's awesome. So for those that are just coming in or those that may not know you or see this on the replay, attorney, would you take a minute and let the people know who you are once again?
Yes, so I am Ashley Myers Jackson. My law firm is Myers Jackson Law Firm. I'm the owner. I've been in practice now on my own since 2017, but I've been practicing law now since 2010. So it's been about 13 years. We focus on real estate, personal injury, and estate planning. Estate planning is my passion. I enjoy talking about it. I enjoy helping my community and other communities prepare strategically for those that they're going to at some point leave behind. So that's a little bit about me. Country girl from Hopkins. For those of you who know, you know, straight from the swamp.
Listen, we still call it 48, so 48 in the house.
That's it, 48 from
We
48.
appreciate you.
Right.
We appreciate you. So, attorney, I wanted to start tonight out with the scripture as we jump into our conversation tonight. And it's from Proverbs 13:22. It's the A clause right there. And it simply says, a good person leaves an inheritance for his children's children. I'm getting a lot older now. It's crazy. I'll be 50
Yes.
in about another 30 years. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
30 days, you
Oh,
said?
wow. In a little while, I'll be 50. I'll leave it at that. And the more I think about my mortality, the more urgency I have about preparing uh, my future for my children, my grandchildren, and my wife.
Mm-hmm.
You work with so many people, you work with diverse communities.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the concerns you have when you start connecting with people or with the work that you're doing? If you had to say my top 3 that are the concerns that I have when it comes to our community, what are those?
First, I think the biggest concern is that our communities just don't think that there's a need to plan. Like oftentimes people will say to me, "Well, I don't have anything." And the truth of the matter is when we sit down and we actually go through the assets that people have, then they start to realize that you do have things that you need to plan for. So that's one of my top concerns. Another that I think is
Sure.
concerning is the fact that people do not realize that there is a life portion of estate planning. There's a portion of an estate plan that affects you while you're living. And in my opinion, that's probably one of the most important pieces.
Hmm.
What should happen if you could not act for yourself, or if healthcare decisions needed to be made for you and you have not designated a person to do those things for you? And I think my third concern would be that young people do not see the need for planning. Oftentimes, we wait until we are at a point where planning is absolutely necessary. And to be frank with you, I hate doing planning under those conditions
Yeah.
because it's just not an enjoyable thing to do for the client, and neither is it for myself, because it's a weight that kind of goes with it. And so I think, removing some of those preconceived notions that there is no real need to do it,
Hmm.
that we are only planning for our demise, if you want to call it that, because that's how people see it.
Right.
And the fact that we wait until we're almost at the door in order to get the planning done. We're basically like, oh, I'm out of here. Let me go ahead and plan at this point. So those are my top three concerns.
I want to jump into all of that really quickly. So, I have a 23-year-old, I have a 19-year-old. So, should they start looking at estate planning this early, even though they have not acquired the master amount of real estate or resources just yet?
Yeah. I usually tell folks as soon as a child turns 18, they really should have some level of a plan in place. That plan is not going to look like someone who's 81 or
Right.
38, but they need a plan. And this is the main reason why they need a plan.
Hmm.
Our children go to bed one night, they're 17. You are making every decision under the sun for them. They wake up the next day, they're 18. And the doctors are going to tell you you're not entitled to their medical records. The banks are going to tell you you're not entitled to their accounts.
That's
The
true.
school is going to tell you, even if you want their grades and you're paying their tuition, you're technically not entitled to that. So your children need to have a plan in place that will allow you to continue to parent them, even though the law says it's not necessary for you to parent them, or you
Wow.
don't have the right to make certain decisions for them once they turn adults. But we know, just because, I mean, to be honest with you, people at 21 and 22
Hmm.
still really need their parents. And the other thing that I think we don't think about with children is our children work, right? They have jobs, they get checks. If something were to happen to them, let's say they were to transition, God forbid,
Hmm.
that final check, you don't want to have to go through loops and hoops to cash a final check, or to do certain types of things. So, yes, it's important for them to have a plan in place, but it's certainly not going to look like a plan that you would have or I would have, but they need some level of legal documentation in place.
I never even considered, because my youngest is in undergrad now, and the whole thing about having access to his grades is
Mhm.
completely true. I never even considered, well, what if, God forbid, something happened and he's in the hospital? They'll send you the bill, but you won't have access to make any decisions.
That's right. They can be on your health care. You still technically can't necessarily talk about that. You can pay for all the bills, the doctor bills, the educational bill. They still, in some instances, people will, because they have had relationship with you with these children, they may still offer you certain things, but lawfully they don't have to. And if your child, or if your child goes to them and says, don't talk to my dad about this, they can't talk to you about that. So these are things that I don't think we think about, and as in our children, certainly in their minds, they're probably not thinking, my mom or dad won't have the ability to make certain decisions for me, because we've been doing those, making decisions for them all their lives. They're not thinking along those lines either. And so what you don't want is a situation um, where there's something really important going on, and you can't get access to them and they can't technically give you access.
That's
One of the
crazy.
things I will say, Kelvin, really quickly,
Yes, ma'am.
and because
No,
you brought
no.
up the fact that your child is in college, oftentimes children go away to college, and some children, that becomes a very pressurized situation.
Right.
I have had situations where a child has had to be institutionalized for a period of time. The parent could not access that child until that child could give authority for the people to talk to the parent. If you have a child that's having a mental break or some sort of mental breakdown, they cannot consent to certain things until a certain period. So can you imagine being separated from your child for 2 or 3 days? You one may not even know the facility they're in, or even if you do know, they're not going to tell you anything and you have no access. That's the type of stuff I'm talking about.
I couldn't even imagine the stress and the hoops you would have to jump through in order to get that access. And it sounds like, and I know and once again, everyone, we're not giving you legal advice. We're having a conversation, but I would like to say, as we're talking, if you'd like to reach out to Attorney Jackson, I'll have her information while I'm chatting for the next few moments popped up across the screen. You can see her there, www.myersjacksonlaw.com, as well as the phone number, 803-394-4461. And I will say about Attorney Jackson, if she can't get to you, she will set a Zoom meeting up with you. She'll find a way to connect with you. And for those of you that are popping in, please do me the huge honor of sharing this information. I know in churchy kind of things, but this is important information specifically to the church as well, because we believe in Jesus, but we also have kids, and we have to make sure we have things set up for our families. So, attorney, I couldn't even imagine having to pick up the phone and call you and saying, what do? I don't have, what's my next step? So I guess my follow-up to that would be, if I were to go to my daughter and say, hey, Jordan, you're 23 now, I need you to consider your estate planning. What does that look like for her?
Well, she would, if you told her that, she would call me, because at the end of the day, she would be my client and I would have to do whatever she feels is in her best interest. So
Okay.
She would reach out to me. Oftentimes I do have people who want to have levels of involvement from other family members. If she wanted you or Lady Nicole to be involved, that would be fine. I would just have to, make sure that she understands, certain things like privilege. But anyway, you could be involved if she allows you to be involved. But at the end of the day, I would sit with her and I would explain, you are an adult. You have the right to make certain decisions. You are not required to choose your parents to assist you in any of this. And you are not required to utilize your parents as, a part of your plan. But you need to have somebody.
That's right.
Who's there, who can help make decisions or at least inform your parents if things are going wrong. At the end of the day, our children, our spouses, even everybody has the right to choose whomever they like to be involved in their estate plan as it pertains to, being key players in the plan. And I really can't tell you who that should be. I can advise. And at the end of the day, we'll make the decision. But I just need a plan of some sort in place, because without one, it's a really tough hurdle to jump.
Well, I guess you already know who'll be calling you next, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we talk about that, because for those of you that don't know, Attorney Jackson is working with me to get my things in order. And when we talked about the healthcare, you have to correct me, healthcare power of attorney?
Yes, that's right.
And choosing people to make tough decisions. And I've said this before on a previous broadcast, and I've said it to my family. If something were to happen to me, I don't want to be on a machine long. If my Lord and Savior got up in 3 days, I want the same favor. But if not, on that third day, pull the plug.
Let me just reiterate that you're not Jesus, so you might want to give yourself a little more time. It might take a little longer.
72 hours. That's on the 73rd hour. Come hug me and look at me and pull it. Let me go on to be with the Lord. But one of the things that was, I think, the most uncomfortable, attorney, was when I had to really start thinking about people who I would designate to make those types of decisions for me. And if there wasn't anyone designated, it's just kind of up in the air of what happens to me.
Yeah.
And I don't think, family that's out there that's watching now, that may see this on the replay, have you considered, if something were to happen to you, who have you designated to make these decisions for you? And have you empowered someone to say, this is Kelvin's information and this is what he prefers? Attorney, how real life is that where people haven't had that plan and the person that's suffering just lies there with no recourse?
Yeah, here's the thing. Practically speaking, most times, if that were the case, we would look to next of kin, or we might look to, someone like that. But what if the person who's next of kin is not who you really want making that decision? That's what I think the issue is. The law, in some ways, will account for some of this. But the issue is you don't want the state controlling who that should be. You need to control who that should be. I say this to married couples all the time, and I see this more often than not, and I'm not picking on men.
Mhm.
But when I go through this particular piece with men and women, I will say to them, you're not obligated to choose your spouse. I know you love them. I know you think that that's the best option because society says your spouse ought to be able to make certain decisions for you. But at the end of the day, men have a very hard time dealing with the loss of a spouse, or the even the thought of the loss of a spouse. Women
Oh
tend
yeah.
to deal a little bit better with that. And I've seen both sides of it. I've seen the planning phase, and I've also seen the phase where people come in my office after they've lost a spouse. And I'm just telling you, it's very difficult for men. And I don't know what it is, but it's difficult. And so, like, even my father is number 3 on my mom's list. And
Mhm.
he honestly would prefer not to be on the list, period.
Mhm.
But I'm just saying to you, sometimes the law is going to look to the person who's least capable of making a decision. And that's not really what you want, because it's not fair to you, and it's also fair to that person. Can you imagine them having to make a decision to pull the plug and having to live with that for the rest of their life? That's just too pressurized of a situation. And frankly, the answer might not have been to pull the plug. It might have been to give you a few more days. We
Mhm.
just don't know. But so you want to be in control of who that person should be.
I don't know if you realized how profound what you just said was. I'm going to end quote. The state may choose the person that is least capable of making a decision that's that important.
Oh yeah.
The way I have it planned out and the way we're working it through, I thought about my family, and I think about the people that would be like, no, we're just going to let them sit there. We're going to trust God. And quite frankly, in my mind, if something were to happen to me, I don't want those types of expenses stretched out for my family for months and months and months and months and months into years. I just, and so to have something in place, even now as we're working through it, it gives me a sort of peace. And the
Mhm.
people that I'm selecting, I know will abide by what I'm asking. My wife will pull the cord without you even having to be there.
So I'm on the way. Just go ahead and pull that thing.
I just go ahead. I'll see him when I get there.
The funny part though is we're joking, but you
Yeah.
you have had a lot of conversation, it seems, with your family. And that's
Mhm.
another thing that I don't think we do. People think that just because you have documents in place that's enough. That's not
No.
enough. You are leaving the decision for your life in the hands of someone else. But if you have not given them guidance, that's not fair either. So you
Nope.
need to have these conversations with your wife. Like you said, if 3 days, I don't want anything beyond that.
That's right.
Because all of this is subjective. In her mind, a short time could be 3 months, but for you, that's an eternity. And so it's important to have the conversations with your key players, even after or during the planning process. The other thing is you need to let the people know prior to listing them
Mhm.
as an agent. Because imagine you put your brother there and he had no idea. And he like, I know Kelvin did not. Pull it,
Ah,
pull it
that
just because
would
I'm mad.
that would be a whole scenario, right? He what? That's
He gonna
funny.
need to know.
He's gonna need to. Amen. Amen. So I might need to call him. So, attorney, as you're going through the estate planning piece, you've mentioned trust, wealth building. Could you take a moment? I'm going to bounce back and forth through some of these topics.
Okay.
Talk to us a little bit about the trust portion, about what you do and how you help with the estate planning.
All right. So, a trust, a revocable living trust, is what we refer to it as in an estate plan. It's an optional piece for most people in an estate plan. A
Hmm.
trust is designed to do multiple things. One of the main things that it does is it assists people in avoiding probate.
Hmm.
It is a tool that will allow you to transfer assets out of your name while you're living and move them into your name as trustee of a trust that we create.
Hmm.
The probate process is a court supervised process to remove an asset out of a deceased person's name into the name of a living person.
Okay.
Whether you have a will or not, if you have assets in your name when you transition, you're going to experience probate. Lots of people have had some dealing with probate and don't necessarily like it. And they don't like it because it is document heavy. It's deadline driven. It's just in some ways a nuisance if you are not accustomed to this. And
Hmm.
so their goal is to not have their family have to deal with that. So we create the revocable living trust, which operates very similar to a will. It still dictates what should happen to your assets, but it automatically removes the asset. Well, it doesn't automatically do it. It's you removing the asset out of your name. Therefore, the probate process is not needed. So that's one reason we use a trust. The other reason that we would use a revocable living trust is if you have young children that
Mm.
you want to leave money behind for or assets, but you want to kind of control how those assets are dealt with after you're gone. You can do that if you have minor children. You can do that if you have adult children that you just feel aren't capable at this point in time of managing a certain amount of money. Um, it's essentially it's like creating trust fund babies. I mean, we used to joke
Hmm.
about stuff like that. You ain't nothing but a trust fund baby. Well, we want them kind of babies.
That's
We
right.
want babies who we have essentially set aside money for, and we dictate when and how that money should go to them. So trust can be used for that purpose. It used to be a time where trusts were designed, and they still are designed to sort of eliminate certain taxable events. At this point, though, the law has given us a broad range of I guess we can pass along a lot more money than we used to be able at the time of passing. So most people at
Okay.
this point are using revocable trust for the purposes of probate avoidance and to control assets beyond being here. So it's a form of wealth building from the standpoint of you being able to dictate what happens to this money even when you're gone.
So, do I have to, if I'm coming to you and I want to learn more about trusts,
Mhm.
um, do I have to deal with the will side or can I just deal with you on the trust side?
You will deal with me on both sides.
Okay.
So there will be certain assets that you may not put into a trust. So I
Okay.
have clients sometimes that will have, let's say they have two pieces of real estate. One they
Okay.
own with their spouse, and that, the spouse and them want to put that in a trust. We'll put it there. But let's say you own a piece of property with three of your siblings that you inherited from your father.
Okay.
That particular piece you might not want to put in a trust because you really are the only person who's going to put that your portion of it into that trust. So we'll still deal with that particular piece under your will. And even if we don't deal with any other assets in your will, we still have a what we call a pour over trust. It is designed to be like a catch-all provision. So for any assets that we don't put in trust while you're living, that particular will capture those and say, you know what? We want all of the assets that we have not put in the trust in life to push over or pour over into the trust to be dealt
Mhm.
with in the same manner that all the other assets are being dealt with under that trust agreement.
That's good
So
stuff,
you will
attorney.
get, to answer your question, and anybody who comes through my office to do estate planning is going to get a will of some sort. It's just whether or not you're stopping at the will or if we're going to continue with the trust and the will.
I know you can't tell someone what to do, but when they're planning with you, is it advisable just to go ahead and discuss the trust and make it a portion of what they're doing anyway?
Yes, I always discuss it. I discuss it because it's becoming more commonplace to
Yes,
hear
ma'am.
about a trust, and people have uh, they don't always fully understand what a trust does. And so I feel like in order to effectively do my job and to be a good lawyer, I think it's important to give people their options and let them decide. Now, I will have clients that come in my office and I'll say to them, this is an optional piece. It would be nice for you to have it, but it is not necessary for you to have it. Um, but if you want it, I will give you what you want. But there are clients where it's just absolutely not necessary.
Okay.
Um, because we can deal with most of their assets outside of probate anyway.
Hmm.
That's a whole nother topic that we could probably touch on
Yeah.
at another time. But certain clients just won't have a need for that, or the children that they're leaving behind, they're just like, I don't really care if they go through probate or not. And so in those situations, a trust is not necessary, but I will cover it.
So I'm listening to you, and every time I listen to you talk about this stuff, I can see and hear the passion. One of the communities that's important to me is the church community, and specifically my brothers and sisters who pastor. Because I don't believe we talk enough about this to our congregations. We prepare them for heaven, we prepare them for miracles, but we don't prepare them collectively, I don't believe, practically for these types of events.
Mhm.
So you may want to share, you may or may not want to share this. Are you seeing a higher degree of pastors and church leaders starting to come through and attach themselves to what you're saying, or are you still seeing it kind of, excuse the verbiage, but slack on that side?
Yeah, I honestly,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to think of you. I mean, I've worked with you as a pastor. Um, but honestly, outside of you, well, I've worked with maybe one or two others that I can, readily think of. But I don't get a lot of pastors in my seats. I have um because I have a tie to the church, and because the church
Hmm.
is where I grew up and I've seen a lot there, I do try my best to educate churches on things like this. I come and I speak for free. Um, I even put on what I call a wills workshop, where I try to get pastors on board with, okay, let's get your congregation together collectively,
Hmm.
and maybe we can do a collective form of planning, which would reduce the cost of it
Hmm.
so that people will actually get it done. So for me, the church is a special place because I know, we lose people all the time in church, but I also see the back end of that.
Uh-huh.
And people are not prepared. They're not prepared.
It's frustrating to hear me say that. One, because as a church leader, I'm at fault. And I can't speak for all pastors, but I'm certainly at fault for not bringing the reality of this type of planning to the forefront. Nothing is more well, there are other things that are frustrating, but one of the more frustrating things is when people pass in the church and they don't have their things in order, and their families begin to fuss, fight, and argue because there's no clear direction for anything. And I
Mhm.
know I have a few church people on tonight. Please share this on your timeline. And I would like to say, hey, pastor friend, hey, church member friend, this is someone who just said, now you can tell a Pastor Kelvin sent you. That don't mean your work is going to be free. Amen. Because she has to take care of her family as well. But if you are the head of a household, you have children, you have young children, why haven't you started your estate planning journey yet? Don't just say, and this is what Attorney Jackson has taught me, don't just say you have life insurance. Do you have things set up so you know where this stuff is dispersed? What if something happens to you and your wife? What happens to your adult children? Who gets what? We have to think further than the right now, and we thank God for all of the things we teach and preach in church. But the reality of it is, should the Lord tarry, all of us are going to leave here by the way of the graveyard. And are we doing our parts other than just praying, which is important, to prepare our families for what's next. So I'm going to take a moment right now and really promote Attorney Jackson. Her number is right there on the screen. Her website is right there on the screen, excuse me. You can find her on Facebook at Myers Jackson Law Firm. Follow her page, like her page, reach out to her messenger. One of her admins will follow back up with you. She will make the time. But family out there that may be seeing this now, that's on the replay, I want to challenge you. What things are you doing to put your family at the forefront by preparing them for the future? It wasn't until, and I don't think I've ever shared this with you, Attorney Jackson, about 15 years ago, I was working and working really hard, like all of us do. But when you're really focused, you go in.
Mm-hmm.
I was really going in and wasn't paying attention to my body. I was at work and I didn't even tell my wife I wasn't feeling well. And it got so bad while I was at work, I started seeing double.
Mm.
Left work, drove to a local CVS and had my blood pressure taken. I always get the high and low number mixed up. It confused me for some reason. I just can't retain it. So I'm not even going to try to make up what it was, but it was high enough for someone to call the pharmacist to come around and look at me and say, "Are you all right?"
Mm.
I told the pharmacist, "Yes, I'm all right." Just to kind of give you an example, I live about 45 minutes from home. I'd never worked close to home, never have. So I drive 45 minutes from home, from work to home, shower, lay down, call my doctor who is about 2 hours away from home.
Mm.
I get in the car. I still don't tell my wife what I'm feeling. I get in the car. I drive to the doctor's office. Just so happened, by the grace of God, he had a spot open. He got me in. He took my blood pressure. He looked at me, and he immediately sent me to the hospital because they thought I might be emerging on a heart attack
Oh God.
because of stress, because of not going to the doctor, because of being so focused on work and being driven. I wasn't paying my body any attention. And to think about that now, my daughter was maybe 5 or 8 years old. She was young. And I think, what if I had left? My wife didn't know where my where my life insurance was. She didn't know how much I had, and at that point, I'm still relatively young. So I'm thinking, yeah, I got enough on my job. So my job is fine. You have to jump through so many hoops just to even get the HR department on your jobs to give you this information. We had a joint checking account, but I had an additional checking account somewhere. She didn't have access to it. She didn't know anything about the account numbers and how to get involved with that. There was no health power of attorney that if something did happen and I was unconscious and didn't come back to, and the doctors couldn't tell her when what was going to happen. None of that was in place because I was under the impression, like most young men who are strong and working, and women too, that I'm going to be all right. But what if I wasn't all right?
That's right.
Where does that? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you're right. I mean, it's we don't think about that type of stuff. And when you have young children, I definitely think it's important to do levels of estate planning and to have a team of people involved. Estate planning is not just, or I should say this, preparing for the future is not just in a vacuum. It's not just sitting with a lawyer to talk about your will or your trust or whatever.
That's right.
But it's also wrapping in an insurance person, wrapping in a financial advisor. You're sitting here talking about you're on the verge of having a heart attack. You probably should have someone to talk about health and wellness. You should have all of this stuff because the goal is to be here as long as we can. I mean,
right.
At least, well, maybe not for pastors. Y'all might have a better sense of what's, you might feel a little differently. But for me, I still need time to get right. And
That's
so
right.
the goal is to be around as as long as possible. For some of us, we need more time.
I hear you.
And the other thing that I think we don't consider is, God has designed us. We have these drives, right? We have the drive to live, and then there are other drives, but the drive to live does not end when we die.
That's right.
We want our children to be here and be successful and fruitful. And the only way to live past being here is for our children to continue to live and their children to continue to live. And the quality of what that looks like is dictated by what we do while we're here. And so when you have young children, an estate planner should sit with you and say, okay, what type of insurance do you have? What type of,
That's right.
stuff do you have? Because at some points in your life, you might need a lot more insurance than you will need later.
Oh,
At this
yes.
juncture in my life, I got three like children under 6 and a 12-year-old. Like, if something happened to me in this moment, I need a ton of insurance.
That's right.
Now, when those little kids get to be 30 or 40, I mean, hey, you can fend for yourself on that.
That's
But
right.
I'm just saying that you,
That's right.
at certain points in your life, it's your job to make sure that you have enough for those people to continue to live, because that's the only way you're going to live past being here. I mean, outside of living in the glory of God, which that's different, but as
Right.
we're talking about on this plane,
That's
that
right.
you're going to have to keep that going. So it's important to do that. And I'm going to say this when it comes to the insurance piece, because I get asked this question a lot. People will say to me, well, I have my sister listed as the beneficiary on my policy because I know she's going to do right by my kids. I always pause. And I say, you know what? It's great. I'm not saying your sister is a bad person or anything like that, but I am telling you lawfully, whoever you leave as the beneficiary on those policies will be able to cash those checks and do whatever they want to with them.
That's
So
right.
if you have young children that you want to leave money behind for, do not list the child itself as a beneficiary, but you do then need to create a trust
That's
and
right.
state in your policy that you want your money to go into that trust, and then you can state in your trust that your children are the beneficiary of that money. That's how you do that. You don't leave it to your sister. You leave it to your trust for the benefit of your children.
And let's not act like those of you. So I'm not, I don't have a way with words, so I just have to say it like it is. And let's not act like we don't know. We've seen it in our families where we know people have left resources and the children are still, when it's time to go to college, have no money. When it's
Mm-hmm.
time to start out, they have no money
Mm-hmm.
because we did the minimum. And a lot of what I hear when I talk to you, attorney, is that you're pushing all of us to think beyond the minimum, think beyond of how what we saw when we were kids. As we got older, we have to think more progressively in order to do better. And everything you're saying, it ties back into how we started off. Proverbs 13:22. A good person leaves an inheritance for his children's children. I would
Mm-hmm.
like to take it a step further. A good person ensures that their children don't have to figure out what you want if when you get sick or if you leave here, because you've taken the steps to ensure that your thoughts, your wants, your desires are in writing.
Yes. These are, I sometimes do a presentation depending on the time of year where I call these things love letters. They may not seem like that, but they are. The biggest sign of love that you can give to a person is to relieve as much from them as you can possibly do.
That's right.
I know as a wife, I think about, okay, what can I do today to make things easier for my husband? As a mother, what can I do today to make things easier for my children? These documents, if done properly, should do that. They should literally have provide some level of relief for your family, whether that's to make a medical decision, whether that's to make a business decision,
That's right.
whether that's to continue on in a line of business that maybe you have, or sell the business. It just eliminates all the stress that goes with taking care of legal things
That's right.
during the midst of emotional things.
Wow.
It's enough to lose a person. You don't need to have to deal with the legalities that go with that too.
We were saying the church, you preaching. That
All
was good.
right, now go stop.
That was good. And once again, I want to say out there, once again, we're not giving you any legal advice. We're just having a conversation. But if you would like to get legal advice, if you would like to get more information on what's being discussed tonight, I would love for you and encourage you to reach out to Attorney Jackson. Her information is right there, Myers Jackson Law Firm. You've got the website, you've got the phone number. You can find her on Facebook. If you're watching this, I'm sorry if this comes across weird, but I'm a preacher. You're not watching this at this moment by mistake. You need to make contact. And I'm certain you've thought about it. I'm certain you keep saying, like I used to, well, at some point I'll do it. At some point I'll do it. At some point I'll do it. And I'm not telling you I'm the best, because Attorney Jackson has God known me. Okay. All right, let's get this together. And I've been slowful. And listen, I'm going to tell you, it's like going to my first 35th doctor's checkup. It wasn't the most comfortable thing the first time, because she was all in my business. Listen, we need to know this, we need to know that, we need to know this. And what it did, it forced me to have to take a moment, call human resources, get phone numbers, get information, send me printouts. What are your account? I had to go find account numbers. Listen, if something happens to you, do you want Nicole to have all of this money, or do you want, or whatever little money you have, or do you want it to go to probate? Nah. So I got $37 over here. I got $47 over here, and I stashed another 85 over there. This is information that we don't think about. And really, attorney, just even I want to say 3 months ago, I was in a car accident and total lost my car. When I woke up, I was in the middle of the interstate. And at that moment, once again, it could have been a transition right there, and things not prepared for my family. And my group, my niche group, is the church right now. And I know I have friends and family that are Facebook friends that are popping in and popping out right now. But you guys that I grew up with, some of you that are in church with me, it's time to get serious about this. It really, really is. I'm passionate about it as well, because as a pastor, I don't want to have to see families argue and wonder and say, Pastor, can you pray to see what God says we need to do next?
Yeah.
No, I want you to go get your will that you put in place with Attorney Jackson, and then you guys can go and handle business like you're supposed to.
Yes.
So I'm really passionate about it as well. One of the things Nicole put on there, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna kick her off the page. We were talking, and this is what she puts up. Yep. Hiding money.
Don't worry, girl. I know where it all is. I got you.
And yes, she does. So there we go, putting it all together. Listen, I know we have people coming in and coming out right now, but if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the comments section, and we'll try to get them answered for you. So next question I kind of wanted to ask, attorney, how is it when it comes? She about a clown. I'm gonna kick her.
It's my birthday twin. Almost twin.
Yeah. Look, you know what? If you're gonna be on the live, Nicole, stop causing confusion. So how about, I can't get away from the church. I got to go back to the church just one more time. I was in a conversation, attorney, at a conference, and they brought someone in, and he began to talk about how pastors would say, yeah, I wrote in the bylaws this and that. And I know I'm not going to dig too deep. And he also used an example of where the pastor transitioned and thought the bylaws are going to be all in all to take care of his wife. Come to find out, it wasn't enough. And there was nothing in place, because this was his life's work. Like many pastors that are founders, this was their life's work. And he assumed that the church would do this and the church would do that. Yeah. And there was nothing in place for his wife.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts when you hear that?
That's something that's been coming to me more and more. Like, churches either putting bylaws in place or revisiting their bylaws. Some churches don't even have bylaws. And by that, I mean, not real ones. I do think that, there are certain insurances even that a pastor could have on himself, like a key man insurance, something to that effect, that, if something did happen, certain things could be paid out. Now, I'm not an insurance expert, so I'm not sure how much dictating you could do with who's the beneficiary of those policies, but I might venture to think that their wife may be capable of being that person, right. Or one of the people. I think when it comes to churches, that it is important to have a lawyer that specializes in some level of succession planning for a church, because that's an important thing. The pastor, for the most part, rarely owns the church by
Right.
themselves.
Hmm.
Um, there are instances where that's true, but it might not be the best thing.
Wow.
So you really do need a specialized person to kind of come in and assist with succession planning.
That's
But
right.
as an individual, just like any other person employed by an entity, I'm never going to tell you to solely rely on what your job is providing as your security. When
Hmm.
it comes to insurance, I have people all the time who will say to me, I have this insurance through my job. And I'm like, well, is that the only insurance you have?
Better
And
not be.
yeah, well, if you lose that job, you done lost that insurance. So you need to diversify your insurance. You need to diversify, how you're doing certain things. So whether you're quote unquote an employee of the church, and I understand what you're saying, it's your life's work, but in some ways you are the employee of that church,
Yep.
and so that does not need to be. You need to have something outside of that just in case. And so that's my suggestion: finding a lawyer that specializes in succession planning, so that you can take care of the church needs, and then the church can take care of the prior pastor and the pastor's wife, and then that you also on your personal side deal with certain things too.
Absolutely. So, Attorney Jackson, if someone were to come to you from the church, do you have people within your network that you refer?
I do have people that I refer. Now, as it pertains to succession planning, I have been searching high and low to
Mm,
find someone for
You're the
that,
one.
because it
You're the one.
keeps coming to me.
You're the one.
So I will say to those of my friends out there who might be listening, if you know of a lawyer that specializes in this area, particularly for churches, please let me know. But I have been searching in my network for someone who I feel confident in referring. But for the other things, like I said, if you need more insurance or if you need
Mhm.
key man insurance, I do have people for that. If the church would maybe even like to set up some sort of retirement account for the benefit of the pastor, I do have people who can help with that.
That's good.
But as far as the succession planning goes, I'm still hopeful that someone will come my way.
Well, I'm praying that at some point, as you're building and continuing to build, that your network will encompass all of this, so we can just go see Attorney Jackson.
That's it. One stop shop right here.
That's listen. I I really believe that. So I'm just passionate about it. You mentioned something earlier about doing sessions at churches, community centers. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I call it the Wills Workshop. And essentially it's designed for me to spend anywhere from about a month to a month and a half with a group of people for the purposes of pushing estate planning and getting a plan done. This is not just me coming to talk to you about what an estate plan encompasses, but it's giving you that educational piece and saying, "Hey, now that I'm here and now that you know what you need, let's get started." And
Mm,
so the way that it would work is the church would set up a time for me to come in, maybe like on a Saturday, and we would come with a group of people. We are providing will based plans. So you would not get a trust with this plan, but you would get a comprehensive will, a durable power of attorney for business purposes, a healthcare power of attorney, a
that's
living will for end of life decisions, and your HIPAA forms. You'll get all 5 documents, all bound up and packaged under this plan, and you would get them at a discounted rate. So
okay.
that first session would be the educational piece and then signing up. I would then schedule people who want to participate for the following Saturday.
Okay.
I would come back for meeting times. So, like, I may have a 9 o'clock slot, a
Got
10 o'clock slot, an 11 o'clock slot. Because I'm meeting in your facility at your church and people are coming to me, it saves me time, which allows me the ability to offer a discount. After I've collected all the information, I probably will take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks and we'll come back to do the signing
okay.
for each plan in the same way: 9 o'clock slot, 10 o'clock slot, 11 o'clock slot. This is designed for people primarily who have a relatively simple estate. I
Okay.
can sit and talk with you and tell you whether or not you're a good fit for this. But if you're not a good fit, even if you want to participate, I can still offer you a plan at a discounted rate. May not be the exact same rate that the people who can participate in this can get, because again, I'm saving time and cost by doing it in the manner that I'm doing it.
That's
But
good.
certainly for people who still want to plan, I will offer another type of discount. So the goal is to get a willing group of people together who's interested in estate planning and who's willing to do the work for the next 4 to 6 weeks to get the plan done at a discounted rate.
You cannot make it any easier than that.
No,
You
you're
can't
right.
you can't make it any easier than that. So if a church, let's say the King's Worship Center where I pastor, because Ellen was, I call her Ellen, Lady Nicole, says she just said to me today, we need to get Ashley up here. I said, okay.
Mhm.
In my mind, I want to do it, but I'm not certain how. So you just gave me the how.
Yes.
Is there a certain number of people that you would want in place for that first session?
I think having a group of at least 50 people would make sense.
Hmm.
And they can be spouses. I mean, I also do something I call them wheel parties. Somebody told me, they were like, that's so lame. Like who has a wheel party? But I'll sometimes even do this for couples, maybe 3 and 4 couples at a time. So I would say maybe 50 people, but more so people who are willing to go through the program. If I had 10 people who were willing to get the plan done, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Um, but again, my goal is to make it a group effort so
Hmm.
that we really can make an impact, but at the same time, the cost makes sense.
Absolutely. And so,
And
guys, I'm sorry. Go ahead, attorney.
no, no, and I was going to say, even for a group like yours, Kelvin, Pastor Steele, I go off, but
You fine.
we could even, for churches that are not local, we could even do it on this type of platform where
Okay.
the group comes into a big Zoom meeting,
Yeah.
and then I schedule individual Zoom meetings. But then the time that I actually show up is for the signing.
Signing.
So we can make it even easier than that. You can sit at home and do it. You don't even have to come to church.
You cannot make it any easier than that. So I know Nicole is on. So there we go, Nicole. We just got the answer. As we prepare to end, because I'm not going to keep you on all night because I know you've been working all day. Thank
That's
you
all
once
right.
again, attorney, for being on tonight. What are you seeing when it comes to our seniors? Are you seeing our seniors? Are they better prepared? Or are you still, specifically for our community, more concerned that their estate planning is still kind of shaky?
I honestly feel like seniors are definitely starting to get more on board with things. I actually have done one of these wills workshops with a senior community out
Mm,
in Ellery. I was
okay.
going to them once a month just to talk about this stuff and to implement this program. Seniors, they have a lot more time nowadays. They have a lot more information and resources, and all a senior really needs to hear is that they need something done, and they go
Mhm,
do it. They have nothing but time. So they've been doing a lot more of it. And in the way that I somewhat engage seniors, I tend to go to them.
mhm,
So I think that helps as well for me to actually sit and talk with them in their own space.
mhm.
That's helpful. So seniors are definitely one of my larger communities, but it's the one that I enjoy the most, to be honest.
I love it. So we're also seeing high profile executive business starting women like yourself.
Mm.
What is that like now in 2023 as far as the estate planning side? Are they slowful like the men are?
No, I find that women are always, well, I shouldn't say always, the majority of the time,
Mhm.
the women are taking the lead on this thing.
Wow, wow.
Most times I get a call from a wife
Mhm,
or from a single mother, or you know and to be honest with you, I've had several business women
Mm-hmm.
One just bought the commercial space that she was renting from her for her business. She came in to do planning. We even helped her close on the commercial space. I have another client who's buying a dental practice. She's a single mom, came in to do her planning. So women, I think, especially when they're on certain tracks business wise, they're always thinking of this type of thing. So really, women are the motivating factor for the most part. And when men come, but on their own, it's
Uh-huh.
they may not be married, but their daughter sent them.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people, it's women. Honestly, they really do drive my business.
So, men, we've got to do better. We've got to do better. I say this jokingly, but how many more heart attack scares, car accidents, near death experiences do we have to have before we realize we have to secure our families? Oh my God. That's funny, but it's scary at the
It
same
is.
time.
It is. It is, but this is I think our community, and when I say our community, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about us black folks.
Mhm.
We really do. Women have always in some ways been a driving force for things like this. And I think it's fine. I just think that, it's important for us to, or at least for men, to be open to the idea. I think if I can get them in, or if someone can at least get them to come, just be open to the idea of planning. It's a tough thing, and I understand why. Like I said before, men don't do this part well. They just
Mhm.
don't. It's most men, I'll tell you this, most men think they're going to lead before the woman. And they don't really think about a whole lot of this stuff. Um, but it's important to do. So if women, if you can just get them here, I can handle the rest.
Well, that's most men. I tell you, I'm going to be here a long time.
Not if you knocked out. You got 3 days, and Nicole will be counting down.
Attorney, I heard you mention closing. That's part of your practice as well, correct?
Yeah, we do real estate closings. We do both residential and commercial closings. Um,
Are
you
we
know,
listening out there, Pastor's Perspective family? There you go. You're looking for an attorney. Go ahead. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
we love that. We do real estate closings from start to finish, and we also handle personal injury work. And so that's another thing that we enjoy doing. All of my work is people driven, and I just love being with people, talking with people. It doesn't feel like work at all.
I love it. So I'm going to have to separate you and my wife because she is clowning on this. She said 3, 2, 1, pull the plug. That woman. When we get back together, we're going to have to, I'm going to update some things in my will.
So take her out.
She would be a whole mess. You would have to drive from Columbia to the upstate to console her. She wouldn't know what to do without me. Anyway, right before we close, I'd like to take a moment once again to say thank you, Attorney Jackson, for being on tonight.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. And sharing your expertise, your passion for what you do really shows and shines through in what you do. For those of you that are out there on tonight, I really wanted this to be more about Attorney Jackson, so you didn't see a lot of branding about a pastor's perspective. When I bring her on, this is about helping people. And so you have her information right there below, her name, her practice information. As I'm scrolling through, you have on the bottom of the screen how to find her website, how to contact her on via the telephone. You can message her page, and someone from her admin staff will get back in contact with you. And I can tell you from experience, they are prompt. Excuse me. You're not going to message them one day and not hear back from them until 2 weeks later. So reach out. At least take the first step and have the conversation. To my pastors out there, take the first step, have the conversation. Wives, if it's been on your mind, take the first step, have the conversation, get the ball rolling. Listen, to my church folk out there, unless Jesus tarries, none of us are going to live forever. And listen, you can hit her with the church talk all you want. She's highly educated, but she knows the church too. So don't have her pull the Bible out with you. So just come on in and have the conversation. So, attorney, before I close out tonight, if you have any closing statements or remarks you'd like to make to the viewing audience who's with us live and who'll see this on the replay, the floor is yours.
Yeah, no, again, thank you so much for having me. I always have a great time. Like I said, and like Pastor said earlier, he and I are like family. So I enjoy this, and you guys are like family. So I appreciate you having me on. Please feel free to give us a call whenever it is that you'd like to. Our consultations are free. So I'm willing to sit up and talk with you at least for an hour about estate planning and how we can assist you. So that's all I have. But thanks again, and I look forward to joining y'all on another live really soon.
Oh, it's going to be sooner than the last one. I
Okay,
jumped off
awesome.
so people could see you talking to them without this distraction of me right there on the screen clouded. So I appreciate the time. I appreciate the information. And listen, family, she will work with you. Now, your work is not going to be free. So if you say Pastor Kelvin sent you, that doesn't mean it's free. There's a cost for the work. Amen. But I'm telling you, it's worth the conversation, is worth starting. She will meet you where you are. If she can't get to you face to face, the phone, the Zoom, whatever. There is no reason for you to not have things in order. I want to check the comments before we close out to make sure there are not any questions. My wife, Lord, she clowning tonight. My kids will take care of me. Anyway, thank you. Yes, and thank you. So she's saying thank you as well. We appreciate all that you do. I appreciate all that you're doing. Listen, and Attorney Jackson is also doing lives and presentations and workshops on her page. Do you have anything upcoming that they can tune in to see on your page?
Actually, I not at this moment, but I will be getting back into that soon. I have been doing live presentations at different places, and I will continue to post about that on my page. But again, if you guys need someone to present for any reason, I do family reunions too. So
That's right.
vacation Bible schools. If you need anybody to present on this topic, I am happy to do it. It's a part of what I feel is my contribution to the community that raised me. So
I love
happy
it.
to do it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you again, attorney, for being on. I'm so excited about everything that you're going to be doing. I'm certainly excited about your future and seeing this just explode and seeing how many people you will be helping over the next several years. I'm excited for you. I'm excited about your
Thank you.
future. Reach out to this woman of God. Reach out to this attorney. Listen, it's what you need in your life. Get started. And listen, for those of you that are on, thank you for tuning in. To my wife who supported me, love you, appreciate you, a distraction tonight. And for all of my church family that's on, thank you so much. This is Pastor Kelvin coming to you from a pastor's perspective. We will have this on the page. I will not take it down. And I'll also have the audio of this up sometime next week, so you can go back and listen to the audio version of this if you don't have time to watch it fully for the video. Also, like and subscribe. You can find us at A Pastor's Perspective on Facebook. You can find me on any other podcast. Like, subscribe, and help support the broadcast. Listen, to all of you that are on tonight, I appreciate you. And until we speak, peace abide. Hold on for me one moment, attorney.